Hi, George here, and today I want to talk to you about how to do old photo repair, but not here inside the advanced mode. In my opinion, this is the best place to do this, but it's also more difficult. Now, before we go over into guided edit, the first thing you should always do is go up here to your background, right-click versus background, and choose duplicate layer. Choose OK. This makes a copy of your background and hide the background. This protects your original just in case things get messed up, and they probably will at some point in this kind of a project. So make sure you have that copy ready to go and saved. And we'll work on this copy up here. Now, before we get into this project, I just want to mention where you can get all of my training courses for Photoshop Elements and other software programs as well. And that's over on my website, How To Gurus. These are online training courses, and I have courses for all the different versions of Photoshop Elements, along with courses for Lightroom and CorelDRAW and Photoshop. And I'll also be adding in more courses for other software programs here in the near future. Okay, let's now go up to the guided edit section. And here you want to be in special edits. And in special edits, you're looking for this one here, restore old photo. Click on that. This is then loading your image. Now on the right-hand side, there are several tools in here. We have a crop tool that you crop into a picture. That's often not used in photo restoration because you want to do the whole image. Spot healing tool, healing brush tool, clone stamp tool, and blur tool. Now you can use any of these tools in any sequence that you want. These are not in any particular order in here, although I do tend to come in and do spot healing first anyway, so this actually is a good spot for the spot healing. And I will tend to do the blur tool as the last step, but I may go back and forth between these three tools here as I'm working on a project. Now the next thing you need to do to make this work out well for you is you want to be able to easily zoom in and out. There's of course a zoom tool up here. You can zoom in with this. Just click in to zoom in, hold the Alt key to zoom back out again. If your mouse has a wheel on it, and I always recommend getting a mouse with a wheel, you can use that to zoom in and out, but this takes a special setting, and that's right up here. Edit, come down to Preferences and General, and that's right here, Zoom with Scroll Wheel. So if you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, make sure you have this one checked. That makes it the zoom wheel, which is real easy. And then if you hold the space bar down, you can move your image around. So we can now zoom in real tight and then move things around where it's easy to work. Hold the space bar down, move around, zoom in and out with the scroll wheel. So it's the easiest way to work when you're doing this kind of photo retouch because you'll be jumping all over the place to do this properly. The next tip in here, if I go to the spot healing tool, notice that all we get is just the tool. We don't see anything else. There's no options, no anything. No sliders over here to adjust brush size, anything like that. But we do have down at the bottom here our tool options. Click on the tool options panel, and that brings up your options for the different tools. So very important that you have the tool options available. On this particular tool, the spot healing tool, I always stick this with proximity match. You can just leave that where it is. I always use a soft brush. That's correct. Sample all layers doesn't matter. We only have just one layer that we're working with. I'll just uncheck that. And then size in here, this is your brush size, and you're going to adjust that right here. Just bring it up a little bit like that. Or you can use the left square bracket to go smaller and the right square bracket to go larger. With the spot healing brush, you want this just a little bit larger than what it is that you're trying to fix. Like the spot right here, just click on that, and it takes out that spot. Now what this tool does is it comes in and it looks at what you're trying to fix. I'll bring that size down. So having this keyboard shortcut really helps a lot when using this tool. It looks at this spot and looks around that area and then tries to do some clone stamping from around that area to fix this area. So it's really doing some clone stamp work for you. Now because that it may not work perfectly every time, it may get something which shouldn't be in here. So if you're working up against an edge like this tool may not work out well for you. Or up against an eyebrow, it may have some problems with that. So it's better in more clear areas. Front of the nose is okay in here. Notice even here, that messed it up. The next thing you need to keep in mind is using the Control-Z keyboard shortcut, and that undoes your last step. That's the undo. Control-Z is undo, Control-Y is redo. Now the way these tools work, spot healing is just like that. You just get a good size, click on a spot, and then hopefully Photoshop Elements finds some good material to come in and cover that up. And I'll usually spend a lot of time with just this tool first, and I'll clean up what I can with just this tool. If it messes up, I'll use that Control-Z to step back one step, and then I'll continue working along. And I find this is the best really for working with and doing your photo retouch is just one specific tool. It's a great tool, but as you can see, it takes a lot of time, and I may go back over an area 2 or 3 times to get the effect that I want. Just slowly working around and getting rid of all the spots. Once I've gone through and I've cleaned up everything I want to clean up with this spot healing, I may extend this to the healing brush tool. Now the healing brush tool is very much like the clone stamp tool in that you hold the Alt key down and click on an area like this, and then move over to what you want to fix, and then just kind of paint in or clone in that area. Now what the healing brush tool does is it tries to first, of course, match what you're doing. You're copying that over, and then it tries to blend that in with the surrounding areas. So it does some color adjustments and some value adjustments as well, making the blend a little bit cleaner. So it tends to be, in many cases, a cleaner way to do this kind of clone stamping. So I'll use this tool for anything that has a soft edge to it. If you have a hard edge on that, you're not going to want to have that cleanup happening. So I would recommend coming down to the clone stamp tool. Let's see, right in here. Again, I'll use the keyboard shortcuts, the left square bracket to become smaller. I'll get a little bit of this hair right here, Alt and click, bring that over, and then brush that in. Now notice again, down below we've lost our tools. Let's go to the tool options, and here's our tool options again for the clone stamp tool. So make sure you have this always available. We don't want sampling layers. Soft brush is correct. Here's our size. Notice I have my opacity set down to 48%, which means it's not giving me full coverage as I'm doing this. And that's better when you're doing this kind of photo retouch. You want to slowly work into this and not hit it all at once. That way you get a cleaner effect. And again, it takes some time on this to make this actually work out well, and we'll be working in very small areas to do this. So just take your time and work around and just do a little bit at a time. You may want to jump around, do a little bit of one step, then a bit of a different step so it doesn't get too boring for you in here. Now you can use, again, any of these tools for any of these spots. It's up to you. Use the one that works out best for you. Back here to the healing brush tool. Again, the healing brush tool tends to soften a little bit. So if you have a background like this, where we have some stuff that we want to soften out, this might be a better tool for you. Again, notice as I change tools, the tool options disappeared. You can bring those back up again with that button or click to go away again. Now, my usual approach on doing this kind of photo retouching is that I'll do the faces first. And if I can get the faces to work out well, then I'll go ahead and do everything else. Everything else is usually pretty easy. The faces are always the hardest part. And that's because people tend to focus on faces. So if you make any errors or mistakes, it's going to show in the face. Right in here, I'm going to use the spot healing. Now, notice with the spot healing, you can come in and actually brush, and it will do longer areas. It's not just a single tap like that. You can come in and do lines with this tool as well. Just keep things relatively small, small short lines for the best effect possible. And sometimes if something doesn't work the first time, you can go over it again and it will work out better the second time. So don't be afraid to repeat where you're cleaning up and just work your way around to get a nice clean effect. And this is the part that takes the most time. I would probably spend several hours on this particular picture to get this just to where I wanted it. There's this kind of banding in here. There's a line here. You can see it, a line here, a line over here. These are JPEG artifacts. And that's when this has been saved as a JPEG file. It brings in some of those things. It does that when it has banding happening on gradients. And of course, faces are going to have gradients across them. It's going from this color here over to the color over here. There's a gradient in there. And you get banding with the JPEG file format. This would have been better saved as a PNG, which doesn't do that banding, but we're stuck with the image that we have, so we have that banding in here. Again, whichever tool you choose will depend upon what you're trying to fix. So with these JPEG artifacts, I'll come in and I'll try to clean up the lines first, get rid of or remove those lines that are showing, which makes the JPEG artifacts really obvious. And once those are gone, then I'll come back and clean up everything else. So kind of a two-step process. Now, once you've gone through and you've done a lot of this work and you still have some of this messiness in here, you can try to clean that up, or at least limit that, bring the effect down a little bit by doing some blurring. You don't want too much blurring, that can cause you issues, but a little bit is not bad. Come down to the blur tool. With the blur tool, only stay in areas that would be fairly even tone. And just come in and just brush like this over this, and we can then get rid of a lot of those little spots by just blending them together using this tool. This works out very well for foreheads like this. It works out good for the bridge of the nose. It's good for cheekbones, those kind of things, cheeks. Anything where you have a larger area that is not too detailed. Now, don't go too far on this. If you go too far, it begins looking plastic. You don't want that. You want to have a bit of variation happening in here. So don't try to make it perfectly smooth or perfectly even. just enough to soften out the worst of those little discolorations. Like that's as far as I would ever take that with the blur tool. But it's pretty good, right in through here on the nose, in here in the cheek areas. It's pretty good for these kind of areas. There we go. We can see how we've done now. And seeing our before and after is very easy here. And switch our tools, which resets everything, and then zoom back a little ways. There we go. And let's now look at this side by side. I'll do before and after horizontal. Spacebar down and move that over. So you can see how we can do a real nice job in here as long as you're being careful about this and taking your time with it. Same thing holds for the background. Same thing holds for the dress area in here. Same tools for all of these things. And zoom out and looking much better already. Now there's something in here that cannot be easily done inside of the guided edit because we don't have a tool for that. And that's cleaning up this white area out here. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Let's finish this off. The last options down here, we have dust remover. This will go through and try to find scratches and so forth. Basically, this is a blurring tool and it's going to blur your whole picture out. So I tend to not use this at all because it will blur out the faces as well. I don't want to have that happen. Auto levels will come in and adjust your levels. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Same thing for auto contrast, auto color correction. I tend to be very wary of these auto controls. Again, sometimes they work out great, sometimes they're just awful. We'll try auto levels and see what happens. Didn't really see much on that one, so I think that's okay. Let's try auto contrast. Okay, that one too dark. Control Z to back up on that one. You also can convert to black and white, although I don't think we need it on this picture. And the sharpen button sharpens up the whole image. And I think one tap on that is actually not a bad thing. If you go too far with sharpening, it's going to begin bringing in more problems you're going to have to go back and fix. So I think one tap is not bad. Now, again, over in the advanced mode, we have more tools that can do more work for us. But these are the main tools here in this particular guided edit. And they're the main ones that you want to use. So it's a really good place to start. Just don't forget that tool options right down here for your tool adjustments. Let's now take this over into the advanced mode. Click on next and in advanced right here. And the one thing that we cannot do over there inside of the guided edit is to fix this outer border area. This should be white. Easy fix. I'm just going to take my rectangular marquee tool, come right up here to the very top left corner, and just drag down a marquee like this. Bottom right. This has now selected this area. I want the outer area selected. Let's go up to select, come down to inverse. The outer area is now selected, and I think I'll do this as a separate layer just in case, make a new layer up here. And then I'll just take the paintbrush, set this at white. There's our white paintbrush, bring the brush size up like that, and then just paint white in here. And we can put that back the way it was. This one's the easiest part of this fix. And just clean up our border very quickly, just like that. Control D to deselect. That's a real fast, easy clean. And I think we're looking really nice in here. Let's just take a look at our before and after. Here's before and here's after. Let's come in a bit closer. You can see that. There's the before and here's the after. If you want to learn more about how to use Photoshop Elements, take a look at my complete training course for Photoshop Elements. I have a link for that down in the description. And I have different courses for all the different versions of Photoshop Elements. You can also find all of my training courses over at How To Gurus. And my latest product is my HTG Photo Coach, which will answer all those questions that you have when you're working with video training. Real great tool to have alongside any kind of video training. I'll put a link for that in the description as well. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. And I'll see you next time.